السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدي ولأستاذي ولمصنف هذا الكتاب. Dear students, we are continuing our class from Kitab As-Sanusi, written by Muhammad bin Umar bin Ibrahim radiyallahu anhu. As you know, this kitab, there is matan and sharh. And today we are going to discuss from the part wal-ilm al-muta'alliq bi jami' al-wajibat wal-jaizat wal-mustahilat. Now, in this part, we are discussing the attributes, the sifat of Almighty Allah. We have studied before from the previous class that Almighty Allah has many attributes, and we, the believers, have to know 20 necessary attributes of Almighty Allah. And Musannif rahimahullah, he mentioned many among them, and then he says wal ilmu, which means ilm, the knowledge. It's an important attribute of Almighty Allah. As a root of the Kitab As-Sanusi, the main focus of this kitab, as you know, it is to prove Almighty Allah and His attributes, something related to the divinity and the prophecy of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all other prophets. The Musannif, he tries to prove it both with naql and aql. Here he says wal ilmu, which means the knowledge. It's an important attribute of Almighty Allah. It is connected with al-muta'alliq bi jami'il wajibati wal jaizati wal mustahilat. The ilm of Almighty Allah, the knowledge of Almighty Allah, that attribute is connected with all things in this world. In this world means that are something besides Almighty Allah. As you have studied from previous classes, that the things can be classified into three according to their existence. Some of them are the things that are must to be here. That is known as al-wajibat. And secondly, some of the things, while considering their existence, their presence, it's known as mustahilat. That things can't be present in this world. And the third category of the things that may be present or may not be, it is known as jaizat. Example of wajibat you have studied from previous classes, previous kitabs. Almighty Allah, and his attributes. It's wajibat. They are known as wajibat. That Almighty Allah and his attributes, it's to be, they are necessary things according to their existence. And mustahilat, the things that can't be presented here. Several examples we can quote, like Sharikul Bari, the friend of Almighty Allah, the second God. It's an example of mustahil that can't be present. And the third one, we can cite many examples for jaizat, the things which may be present or may not be present according to their existence, that like our humans, animals, plants, birds, etc. And Musannif says, the knowledge of Allah, the knowledge attribute of Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's connected with all these things, which means nothing is hidden from Almighty Allah. He knows each and everything in this world, even if it is the thing that are necessary, that is wajibat, that is wajib, or the thing that is mustahil, it can't be, and the thing that is may be present or may not be, that is jaizat, jaiz. Everything is beside the knowledge, below the knowledge of Almighty Allah. And Shari rahimahullah, he describes these lines of matin, wal murad bil ilm, which means here the reference of knowledge. It means sifatun min sifatihi qadimatun wajibatun qa'imatun bidatihi ta'ala. It's an attribute of Almighty Allah. Qadimatun wajibatun. What are the peculiarities of the attributes of Almighty Allah? We have studied from our previous classes. They are qadimatun wajibatun. These attributes are the necessary things, and qadimatun, which exists in all the time, or in other terms, it has no beginning, it has no ending. Qa'imatun bidhatihi ta'ala. Again, Shadi rahimahullah describes the peculiarities, the features of the knowledge of Almighty Allah. It is qa'imatun bidhatihi ta'ala. It's an attribute which is present in the that of Almighty Allah. Yankashifu bihi ay yattalihu bihi kullu ma'lumin min kulli wajib min kulli wajibin wa jaizin wa mustahilin. It's an attribute, and by this attribute Almighty Allah knows all the things, kullu ma'lum, all the things in this world, min kulli wajibin wa jaizin wa mustahil. It includes here the min, it is bayaniya, which means the kullu ma'lum. What's the actual meaning of kullu ma'lum? What are the different categories included in the ma'lum? It's being described by using the term min. Min kulli wajib wa jaiz wa mustahil. The necessary things, the things that are not to be present in here, mustahil. The things that may be present or may not be present, jaiz. All things that are included in this ma'lum. And this ma'lum, it is actually it is understood by the knowledge, the sifat of knowledge, the attribute of knowledge of Almighty Allah. فهو تعالى يعلم جميع أقسام الحكم العقلي بعلم قديم لا يعزب عن علمه مثقال ذرة. And again, Sharih Rahimahullah says, according to this attribute of Almighty Allah, Almighty Allah, He knows all the things, all the statements, and nothing is beyond the knowledge of Almighty Allah. And I think it is a time we have to conclude here. And if you have questions, please mention.
We said that the knowledge of Allah connecting with all things, what in different mode of existence, mustahil, jaiz, wajib. My question is, how the thing what can't ever be mustahil, how the knowledge of Allah connecting with that things that is not in existence.
Okay, good question. He asks, the Sharih Rahimahullah, he has mentioned in the kitab that the knowledge of Almighty Allah, the knowledge of Almighty Allah, it's connected with both. It's connected with all the things like wajib, mustahil, and jaiz. And the mustahil, it is the thing that cannot be present here. And how Almighty Allah knows, and how Almighty Allah know about the mustahil, that's actually not here. It's not existing here. We can simply answer, the knowledge of Allah, Almighty Allah, He knows if there was a mustahil, and then how that mustahil will occur here. For example, I have mentioned an example for mustahil, Sharikul Bari, the friend of Almighty Allah. Actually, it is not present here. And if it was presented here, suppose, then how will be its different attitudes, its features, what will be its features? That will also below the knowledge of Prophet, below the knowledge of Almighty Allah. It's mentioned through these lines that the knowledge, the attribute of knowledge is connected with mustahil as well as connected with jaiz and wajib.
Here Imam Sanusi Rahimahullah explained the qualitative attributes as it is necessary. While we are looking to the Sharhul Aqaid an-Nasafiyya, there is amma fi nafsiha fahiya mumkinatun. It is possible. The qualitative attributes are possible things. Then what is the difference? What is the mean of this kind of tanaqul, contradiction between the Ash'ari in this qawl?
Okay, an important question that here the attribute of Almighty Allah, it is mentioned as wajibatun. Yani it's a necessary attribute of Almighty Allah. It's a necessary thing. And in the Kitab Sharh al-Aqaid, it is mentioned that فَهِيَ مُمْكِنَةٌ. It can be interpreted that all the attribute of Almighty Allah, it's actually necessary when it's connected with Almighty Allah. That means the attribute, as far as we concern it as the attribute of Almighty Allah, they are necessary things. And the thing that mentioned in the Kitab Sharh al-Aqaid فَهِيَ مُمْكِنَةٌ بِنَفْسِهَا, that means these attributes, these sifats, they are actually like all other jaizat mumkina.
In this kitab we said that wal muradu bil ilmi sifatun min sifatihi qadimatun wajibatun. My doubt is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ilm is qadim, but my question is, if we planning a thing to complete work to complete tomorrow, so there is two things, the action and my planning of this work and the report of that work tomorrow. So report will be completed tomorrow. So why will be qadim the ilm of Allah about this report of tomorrow is doing thing, not asking the situation of my action plan. Okay.
Okay, and nice question from you that as far as we humans are concerned, the knowledge, it can be interpreted as something related to the things that are to be done tomorrow. That's planning. And on the other hand, something related to the report that have already mentioned, that have already occurred here. And if the knowledge of Almighty Allah, if it is qadim, then how it will be connected with these two things? That's your question. We see the knowledge of Almighty Allah, the perfection of the attribute of the knowledge of Almighty Allah, it's being in the ilm al-ijmaliya that we are studying from our many other kitabs. According to humans, the knowledge, it's important and the perfection of the knowledge is considered as the knowledge related with tafsiliya, al-ilmu tafsiliya. And according to the Almighty Allah, it's being considered as the knowledge of ijmaliya, that how will be the things happen. It is the perfect knowledge. While we connect the attribute of knowledge to Almighty Allah, and the Almighty Allah, He knows how an action take place here in today and in tomorrow, in the coming years, days, and also He knows how a incident how an incident happened yesterday or before the days. He knows all the things that's mentioned here, and we are concluding here. وبالله التوفيق وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.